And now I would like to invite Carolyn to say a few words. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Michael. And I think just before I introduce Laura, I would like to introduce Michael very quickly. He's a graduate of Sydney Uni, did his MBA at UTS, where he lectured in international business and marketing. And I think even more important than that was where he met his beautiful wife, Landy. He's got 2 boys and he's a wonderful addition to our ticket. He's just a fantastic guy that's going to be a wonderful asset for Mosman, truly believes in independent government. And welcome, Michael, to the team. I'd also very much like to welcome and introduce, my absolute pleasure to introduce Laura O'Reilly. For those of you in the Zoom that don't know, Laura is actually my niece. And so I've known Laura for a very, very long time. Laura is a graduate of Cambridge University and the University of New South Wales, where she studied history and law. And she, during that time, has been a recipient of many, many awards. And I'm just going to, and Laura, I know you're probably really embarrassed, but I'm going to read them out because, oh, I'm very sorry. Now what have I done? Just a minute. I've lost you all. Dear. Sorry, guys. I've gone off the meeting.
That's right. We can still hear you. We can still hear you.
Oh, good. Well, I'm going to get back on the meeting, but I'll just finish reading out and then I'll get back on the meeting. Sorry. I had a little thing saying it was being recorded and I tried to change that and I've lost a lot. So during that time, a recipient of a really wide range of awards, including 2 Dean's List prizes for academic excellence, and the Annie Jemima, Chloe and Jessie Forbes prizes while at Cambridge. In September 2014, Laura was awarded the Australian Women's Weekly Woman of the Future, was a finalist for both the New South Wales Young Australian of the Year in 2016 and the New South Wales Woman of the Year in 2019, and was a Westpac Social Change Fellow in 2018. To cap that all off, in 2021, this year in January, Laura was awarded the OAM for her services to the disability community. Laura is also a mother of 3 beautiful children, a wonderful husband, and it has here that her other interests, believe it or not, include politics and global affairs. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Pip and Laura to take us away for tonight's conversation.
All right. So I'd like to ask Laura to give us a bit of background about her passions, and why she moved into developing Fighting Chance and then higher up. And so, Laura, if you could just give us your, your best self.
Oh, will do. Well, I think there's a bit of echo there. Michael, are we good with the slides? Are we able to show the slides? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Would you like me to show them, or?
Oh, I've got it. There we go.
Fabulous. Well, yeah, firstly, thank you very much for having me. It's a real honor. I'm gonna have to edit that bio or something. I find that very embarrassing. But yeah, thank you very much for having me. Mosman Council and and Kind whole team have been an amazing supporter of Fighting Chance over many years, which I'm going to touch upon a little bit later. But yeah, so it's just a real honour for me to be here supporting the campaign. So the plan for tonight for me, just to talk a little bit about our family story, I guess my why I really believe so passionately in inclusion and this work. Tell you very briefly about my organisations, Fighting Chance and Higher Up, and then yeah, just going to sort of end by just reflecting a little bit on the role of inclusion in our society, and in particular disability inclusion action plans, like how important those are as vehicles for affecting social change. So that's the plan. So if we could skip to the next slide. So my why and the reason that I do this work and have been working in the disability sector for now 10 years is because I'm the sibling of a young man with disability called Shane. Shane, very fortunate to be one of 3 children in my family, me and my brother Geordie, the 2 oldest, and then Shane is the youngest of our 3. And we had the advantage of growing up in both as siblings of Shane and being able to walk through the world, seeing the world through his eyes, seeing, I guess, life through the eyes of a person with disability that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see if it wasn't for being Shane's older sister. But also, we had 2 parents who very much were passionate believers in inclusion, that believed that whatever was good enough for the 2 older kids was good enough for Shane, and literally went to the ends of the earth. We moved to the UK twice to pursue better services and opportunity for Shane, because my parents believed that, and this was, they believed in inclusion in a time in sort of the late 80s when institutionalization of people with disability was still, a fairly normal practice. People with disability would go up to sort of institutions in the Blue Mountains, and that was still kind of normal at that point. So to have grown up in a family with examples in our parents of, nope, we don't leave Shane behind. We don't exclude him. He's a member of the family. He's expected to contribute and participate in equal measure to the other 3, and that, I guess, was the example for us growing up, and that has very much shaped the work that we've come to do. I love showing this photo of Shane just as sort of an example. I think this photo captures who Shane was, and the sort of family setting, and also the work that we've subsequently come to do. This is a photo of, I think Shane was probably about 14 at this point, a picture of my profoundly disabled brother who couldn't scratch his own nose or couldn't turn himself over in bed, mowing the lawn. And this was this photo very much typifies my dad's attitude to Shane from when he was an absolute baby, of trying, that a refusal to let his disability define him or define what he was able to do. And my dad particularly had a real kind of obsession, I guess you could say, to adapting the environment and working out how can we give Shane the opportunity to participate fully. So in this photo, we lived in the UK at the time and weren't eligible for any social welfare, so we were very poor. So they had this very poor second-hand wheelchair that could elevate, and Dad strapped the mower to Shane's legs with a belt, which when I tell that story in front of OTs, they all kind of, oh God, but he didn't hurt himself, fortunately. But it enabled him, with the little bit of control he had in his index finger, to move his chair and then mow the lawn. And that was my whole life, was my parents, my dad in particular, cutting up bits of foam and putting together blocks of wood and like trying to work out, ways that Shane could be fully included. And that has enormously influenced the work that we do now. 2 other things about this photo. My dad set the example for us that contribution was an enormously important aspect of that Shane had the right to be able to contribute. That I remember being really young and Shane being required to set the table, and he had a sort of a walker thing. It would take him an hour to set the table, but my dad would say, no, the other kids have to do chores, Shane has to do chores too. And in this case, obviously, Shane's mowing the lawn for the family. And I think, again, that's come to really influence our work and our thinking around ensuring that people with disability have opportunity not only to participate, but to do things like work, because that's so important to identity and self-worth and sort of have positive self-esteem. The other thing about this photo is just, my dad was very kind of entrepreneurial with his approach to Shane. It was always just kind of, let's just hack it together and see what happens. And again, that has significantly shaped the work that we've come to do. So if we could just jump forward to the next slide. So I guess the story of my involvement in the Australian disability sector and in this work begins with Fighting Chance. So in 2011, Geordie and I took over the reins at Fighting Chance and launched it as a not-for-profit organisation based in the Northern Beaches to ensure that all people with disability have unbridled access to opportunity, dignity and prosperity as part of a truly inclusive economy. That's what we believe in. A couple of operative kind of phrases in that vision. As I mentioned before, it's about opportunity, but not only opportunity, also dignity, the dignity of being able to contribute. And so I guess the way that where we focus is about a truly inclusive economy. It's important that every single person be able to contribute, to work, to participate fully in the economy. Shane didn't need charity, he needed opportunity. And so that is really where we focus. And we achieve our mission through building social businesses. So again, from the perspective of what Shane needed was goods and services that were tailored to his needs that he was unable to access in the economy. And we really saw that was lacking back in sort of 2009, 10, 11. So to date, Fighting Chance has built 4 social enterprises. The 2 on the screen, Avenue and Jigsaw, are the kind of the biggest and best known, but we also run a social enterprise called Base in the independent living space, and also Ready in the sort of life planning space. And I guess Fighting Chance's methodology is we identify a problem, think up a solution to that problem that has to operate within the context of a social enterprise. So it has to be able to, within 3 to 5 years, pay for itself. We don't want to, like I said, we don't want to rely on charity forever. We want to get our solutions to problems to eventually to be able to wash their own face. And Avenue and Jigsaw are both focused in the employment space, as I mentioned. Just I guess just a bit of a sense of Fighting Chance. Yeah, as I mentioned, started 2011, so 10 years into this work. Started with extremely humble beginnings in a little kind of tiny little office in an industrial estate in Brookvale with absolutely no idea what we were doing. But 10 years later, the organisation has grown to be supporting over 1,000 people with disability across 10 sites in 3 states. And we're just opening, actually 4 states now. We're just opening in Adelaide at the moment. And we employ about sort of 600 staff to support that cohort of 1,000 people, and we're going to be doubling in the next 18 months. So we're growing rapidly. I might pause at this point just to mention the role that Council has played in helping us to get to where we are. Council was actually one of the very first organisations ever to give us a community grant back in 2012. I'd say, one of the first organisations that backed us, and that's significant for a couple of reasons. The funding helped enormously. These were in the days that $500 was the difference between surviving and continuing to move and going under. So it made, the grants of several $1,000s that we got in those days were enormously important. But I think also more importantly, having the backing of an organisation like Mosman Council really helped others to, go, okay, well, this must be a legitimate organisation. Really helped to sort of to spur us on, was a real turning point for us. And then Avenue in particular has a Avenue's model, without going into all the detail of it. Avenue empowers people with profound disability to sell products at markets, and the markets in Mosman were our original stomping ground and where we really developed the idea. So, as I mentioned, Council has been enormously important to us and continues to be one of our key partners. Jump to the next slide. So in 2013, 2014, as we were working away on Fighting Chance and trying to build these social enterprises and create this inclusive economy, my brother Geordie had an idea around attendant care and trying to put people with disability more in control of their supports. So the insight for Higher Up was really, Shane needed in the morning, he needed a worker to come into our home and to get him out of bed, give him a shower, give him his breakfast, dress him. And we were going at the time through the agency, care agencies that you'd call and you'd say, I need someone, and they'd send you someone. But that having that intermediary of an agency in the picture meant that we had very little control over who that support worker was. And there were many mornings where we opened the door in the morning and you had no idea who the worker was that was arriving. They didn't, never met them before. They come into your house at 6 in the morning. Hello, nice to meet you. There's, that's where Shane is. And there was a whole host of things that happened, but things like, the worker would go into Shane's bedroom, and Shane had quite a heavy speech impediment, but he was extremely bright and very social, and he'd say, hello, how you doing? But the worker couldn't understand what he was saying because of his speech impediment and would just ignore him. And you'd just be sitting there in the morning just like, oh my God, I prefer to do it myself than to have to listen to him experience that. And so there were 1,000 sites like that, often on a weekly basis. So that really led us to think, okay, how can we use technology to put people with disability in control of their supports? And so today, how Higher Up is an online platform. People with disability create a profile, support workers create a profile, and then through the system and the technology, the parties are able to find each other, engage in conversation, see if they like each other, and then proceed to working together. Higher Up is the employer of all of our support workers. So that's in the gig economy, in an economy with lots of kind of gig providers who are employing contractors and not always paying them properly for their time, we made the decision with Higher Up to be an employer of our workers, and that's really important philosophically to us. Higher Up also had very, very humble beginnings. Higher Up had a desk in the Fighting Chance office for the first couple of years. It was extremely humble, but today it's grown enormously. So Higher Up has about 150,000 registered users on the platform across Australia. It's facilitated 72,000 support connections, 9.3 million hours of support, and something that I'm really proud of in terms of Higher Up's growth. Because we with the NDIS, people with disability are funded an amount of money per hour, call it $60. Higher Up doesn't charge the NDIS the whole $60 for that hour of support. We charge about 10% less. And as a consequence of that, Higher Up has saved the NDIS $87 million in hours of support over its last few years, which has enabled, and it's a little bit more complicated than saving the NDIS. It saves people's NDIS plans that then enable those people to go and buy more hours of support, get more bang for the buck from the NDIS. So it's a really important aspect of how we work. And yeah, I mean, with Higher Up, Higher Up's already obviously quite big, but we have plans to treble it by 2025. So so that's the work that we do. I just wanted to, before finishing, I just wanted to talk about the importance of inclusion and what it means, and particularly the role that a DAP plays in that process. From my perspective, inclusion is a right, and coming, to the work that we do from the perspective of being Shane's sister and loving a person who was excluded, it's just, that's not okay. And I think for that reason alone, in a just society, we should all do everything that we can to ensure that all people are included. But more broadly than that, I think, it's very clear that inclusion generates enormous benefits for any society, from the community benefits of the the really positive social aspects that you see come into play when there's a person with disability, for example, in a workforce, through to the economic aspect. And again, that's very much Fighting Chance's perspective. 20% of the Australian population have a disability, and it's an enormous consumer group. So businesses and organisations that exclude people with disability are missing out on an enormous audience for their wares. I think so inclusion is undoubtedly vital, but bodies, organisations, particularly local government, actively stepping into inclusion and developing really good disability inclusion action plans is critical. I always think that failure to plan is planning to fail, and that if we're not overt and intentional in our thinking and in our actions to overcome I guess unconscious bias that we all create, and overtly do the work of changing our thoughts and being more inclusive. But also things like particularly for people with physical disability, you need the space and the environment to be accessible. You need there to be ramps. You need someone to do the thinking of, can I get into this art gallery, if I was in a wheelchair? And certainly from the perspective of employment, it requires work for employers to actively make their workplace inclusive. So a document, a plan, a roadmap like a disability inclusion action plan is just so critical to kind of making sure that thinking is front of mind and make sure society is inclusive for all. So I know that council is just finalising up the next DAP, and I think that's really fantastic. So I might finish there. Again, thank you very much for having me. I'm really honoured to be here.
Just fantastic, really wonderful. I think that we all understand, first of all, from little things, big things grow, and what you said you started and where you are now is just inspirational. There is always more to do. That's, I think, the take home is just, you can never do enough in this space, and the challenges are for us all to keep thinking, accessibility, inclusion. I think that it is something that we need to be, and governments particularly, but everyone, leaders, governments, we all need to play our part, and in a community that we care for our fellow residents and community and look after them in that space. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm sure everyone here tonight has really enjoyed it. I think we've probably only just scratched the surface. It's, you know, an amazing journey that you're on, and I know it's going to continue and that you're going to keep doing wonderful things. And I hope you gather around you at the team of a most wonderful team of other inspirational Australians who will work with you. So thank you very much. And thank you, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Kai.
Thanks,
Please.
Laura.
Yes, thank you.
You're on mute, Michael.
I only did it once and it was at the end. I've just put a link in here. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, feel free to subscribe down here. I just wanted to thank everyone again, but also our next event will be in a fortnight on Wednesday, the 20th of October. We have moved it forward a day to fit in with some other people's other events happening. So keep that date free. We'll let you know about it. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, subscribe so that you can receive updates from us. I'd also like to invite you to, if you do have any topics that you want us to cover, we'd welcome the feedback, and feel free to email us, servingmosman@gmail.com. And of course, we're on Facebook. Feel free and like us on Facebook and share the love around. That's all for this evening. Thank you very much for your time and being here with us tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Laura.
Yeah.